It began like any other quiet morning in the woods. The air felt sharper than usual, and the silence was broken only by the calls of distant birds. For David Miller, a man who loved hiking the back trails, the forest was his escape. He often came here when the weight of life pressed too heavily on him, when he needed to breathe air that felt untouched by the world. But on this morning, he would stumble upon something that would forever change his life. He had walked this trail dozens of times before. He knew the bends, the roots, the mossy stones, and the fallen trees by heart. But today, something was different. About a mile in, he noticed a dark stain across the leaves. At first, he thought it was just mud, maybe left by a deer or a hunter passing through. But when he leaned down, his stomach tightened. It wasn't mud, it was blood. The sight startled him. Blood wasn't unusual in the woods. Animals fought, hunters sometimes lost a wounded deer. But this was different. The trail was too heavy, too fresh. It didn't scatter the way an animal wound would. Instead, it formed a thin, dragging line, leading deeper into the forest. David hesitated. Something inside him told him to turn back. This wasn't his problem, but something else. The part of him that hated unsolved mysteries, that believed every trail led to an answer, kept him moving forward. Step by step, he followed the crimson path into the silence. The further he walked, the more his chest tightened. The blood wasn't splattered, it was smeared, as though someone had been crawling or dragged along the ground. His steps grew slower, careful, deliberate. Every few feet, he stopped to listen. The forest was quiet, unnervingly quiet. Even the usual rustle of squirrels had vanished, as though the woods themselves were holding their breath. That was when he saw it. A fallen log, half-rotted, hollow inside. The blood trail ended there. His pulse thudded in his ears as he crouched beside it. He bent low, shining his flashlight into the hollow trunk. For a moment, he saw nothing but darkness and damp leaves. And then, movement. A pair of eyes, wide and terrified, met his. "Please," a weak voice whispered. Don't tell anyone." David froze. It was a woman. She was curled up inside the log, her arms wrapped around herself, trembling. Her face was pale, her lips cracked, and her blouse was soaked with blood from a deep wound along her side. "Ma'am, you're hurt," David whispered back. "We need to get you to a hospital." Her hand shot out, gripping his wrist with surprising strength. "No, if you tell anyone, they'll kill my daughter." The words sliced through him. In an instant, the situation transformed. This wasn't just a stranger in need of help. This was a mother clinging to life, chained to a secret so dangerous that even speaking of it carried a threat. David's heart raced. He looked around the empty forest, then back at the woman. She was bleeding badly, but her fear seemed even deeper than her pain. "Who?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Tears welled in her eyes. "They'll find us. They always find us. Please, don't make me lose her." Her voice cracked, and David realized she wasn't talking about her own safety. She was terrified for her child. Every instinct screamed to call 911, to get help. But her grip on his wrist and the raw desperation in her eyes made him hesitate. This wasn't just about an injury. This was about something bigger, darker, something he didn't yet understand. Over the next few minutes, her words came out in broken fragments. She had tried to run. They had caught her. They left her bleeding, certain she wouldn't survive the night. But somehow, she dragged herself into the hollow log and prayed someone would find her before they came back. "They said if I talked," she whispered, her voice trembling, "my little girl would pay the price. They're watching her." David's blood ran cold. He didn't know who they were, but whoever they were, they had already shown what they were capable of. He sat back on his heels, the weight of the moment pressing on him. If he called for help, he risked exposing her secret. But if he didn't, she might die right here in the woods. And somewhere, a little girl was depending on her mother surviving. He reached for her hand. "I won't let them hurt your daughter," he said softly. "But I can't let you die here either." Her eyes searched his face, desperate for truth. After a long pause, she gave a tiny nod. He pulled off his jacket and pressed it against her wound. She gasped in pain but didn't fight him. "I'll help you," David whispered. "But you have to trust me." Getting her out of the log wasn't easy. She was weak, her body trembling from blood loss. David supported her weight as best he could, wrapping his arm around her waist. Step by step, they moved back toward the trail. Every sound made her flinch. A snapping twig, the distant cry of a crow. Her fear was contagious, seeping into David's bones. Still, he pressed forward. The world felt smaller now, as though danger lurked just beyond the trees. As they walked, she spoke in whispers. Pieces of a nightmare, men with power, secrets that couldn't be spoken aloud. A name she almost uttered, then bit back, shaking her head. "Too dangerous," she muttered. "You don't understand." And maybe he didn't. But he understood enough. Someone had hurt her, someone was threatening her child, and she had no one else to trust. By the time they reached the road, David's arms ached from holding her up. He glanced at her face, pale, but determined. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. He didn't know who they were or how far their reach extended. But as he helped her into his truck, he made a silent vow. Whatever storm was coming, he wouldn't let her face it alone. Later, as he sat by her hospital bed, after convincing her, gently, that medical care was the only way to keep her alive, her words echoed in his mind. "They'll kill my daughter if you tell." It wasn't just a warning. It was a chain binding him now. David knew that by stepping into her story, he had stepped into danger himself. But walking away was no longer an option. Sometimes, fate chooses you. And sometimes, the quiet trails you love lead you straight into the darkest parts of the human heart. The story didn't end in that hospital room. It was only the beginning. Some secrets hide in the shadows for years, waiting for someone to stumble across them. David hadn't asked to be that someone, but now, he carried her secret, her fear, and her hope for her daughter's life. And though the forest trail grew quiet again, he knew he would never walk it the same way. Because somewhere out there, in the silence between the trees, danger still waited. But so did courage.